And what I really find with a good PSA solution like Client, what it affords us is a lot of things that have a very big impact on the bottom line of the company. And
so TruSummit is a firm that helps complex organizations like manufacturers, high-tech companies maximize their Salesforce investment. So before Client, what did your own internal operations look like for managing projects and resources? What was the friction that was costing you? And then what was that breaking point when you said, yep, we need a real PSA solution?
yeah, so our journey into Client was probably like a lot of companies. We were maybe about a 3-4-year-old company. We've been growing. We started small with just a handful of people, but as we evolved and scaled up, we really were starting to kind of feel pain that a lot of companies probably do. And we found ourselves in a situation where we were cobbling together solutions. It was tracking a lot of information about projects inside of Excel. I mean, just endless Excel worksheets. And then when we were asking our project managers to report out, they were having to pull together PowerPoint decks and all this sort of thing. And it was just so much manual effort. We did have a very rudimentary time entry system that we were using. It was an external, obviously not in Salesforce. And we were kind of getting by like that as a 5, 10, 15 person company even. But it quickly got to the point when we were growing and we had more projects going on and there were just more demands on our project managers. This wasn't working. The manual processes were not working. It was inefficient for them. It was inefficient for the team. It was inefficient for leadership, who were themselves having to do a lot of this sort of manual manipulation of information as they're trying to ask questions. How am I going to be scheduling going forward? What are my staffing levels? Just that visibility that you need to run a business. We hit that point. And that lack of visibility is really what drove us to look for alternatives. And we found Client and quickly realized that this was the type of tool that we needed, and went through an evaluation process. As a Salesforce partner, the fact that it was built on top of Salesforce was essential for us. It really was. So we made the right choice.
All right, excellent. So when you first saw Clients, what was that specific moment where your team or Click, you thought, this is it, this is the solution we need? And obviously knowing Clients built natively on Salesforce, how does that native architecture actually pay off in practice?
Yeah, first off, I would say the thing that really for us, made it an easy choice was our team's already familiar with Salesforce. We're in there every day. Everybody uses it from sales to delivery. Everybody already was comfortable and familiar with what Salesforce is, how it works. They're sort of Salesforce native. So Client being built on that platform made that a pretty easy choice. But having everything under one roof was really the aha moment, because previously it was just so difficult when you're looking at sales forecasting. That's built on sales data, opportunity data. And that's really the first sort of, precursor to building out your delivery forecast, is knowing what's out there in the sales channel and the sales funnel. So, excuse me, having all of that under one roof really was for us what closed it for us. And then, as we, started really diving deeper into it, we realized that pulling all this data together, giving us visibility across the entire journey of a client coming in as a new prospect, all the way through to delivering the project, all the way through, that having that comprehensive end-to-end solution all on one platform was just fantastic.
Awesome. Could you talk a little bit about how the implementation, the onboarding experience with the Client team, was for you guys? How was that experience? And as someone who delivers implementations for a living, what stood out, if anything?
Well, here's what I'll say. The onboarding process for us was just fantastic. And the support that we got from the Client team, from the the teams that were there helping us and guiding our sort of project managers that were doing this internal project, were right there hand in hand the whole time. And what's really interesting, and what really stands out to me, is that we're now a couple years in on Client. That relationship hasn't changed. What we saw in that first initial implementation, with the level of support that Client was able to provide for us, they have been a partner all along this journey as we've grown and evolved and scaled up our use of the platform. They've been there every step of the way, always listening, always being responsive to our needs. And we saw that really from the very beginning of this engagement, this partnership.
So, Dean, let's talk numbers. Can you share any specific metrics, right? Time saved on reporting, improvements in resource utilization, billing cycle speed, project margin visibility, anything that really tells the after story in concrete terms in terms of our outcomes and ROI?
So, when we think about metrics, I'm an operations guy. I live and breathe in the data and our dashboards and reporting. And what I really find with a good PSA solution like Client, what it affords us is a lot of things that have a very big impact on the bottom line of the company. And these are things like, I would start with just overall project success, right? We have the controls in place now. We know when there's risks in projects. We know when budgets are potentially, running over. We know, for example, when we're staffing projects, we we're able to kind of manage our margins better, ensure that we're not just throwing bodies at a project, but we're staffing more intentionally. We're staffing, strategically, so that we're always protecting our margins. And when I go, we actually did some of this analysis, going back and looking in the, at our gross margins that we were making on projects prior to having Client in place, and those improved significantly. But also just from the quality of delivery. So the number of projects that were kind of falling into being at risk for one reason or another, or scenarios where clients were just not getting information from us. They didn't know where they were in the project, or they weren't getting the status reports and so on. All of that has really been solved for the most part by incorporating Client into our process. We have something we call our proven process. It's our delivery methodology, and it's fit very well, and it's really augmented and supported, almost become the backbone of our delivery methodology, because we've been, it's a flexible tool, and we've really been able to sort of adapt it to the way we deliver for our clients. But further, I mean, if you're thinking about bottom line impacts of a good PSA tool like Client, is having better visibility into our staffing and forecasting, and knowing when to hire. Again, projects, clients delay projects, things happen. I mean, Client doesn't change the way our clients operate for us, but what it's done is allowed us to really mitigate scenarios where we're hiring when we don't need to, or we're failing to hire when we should have, to stay ahead so that we can staff our projects more effectively, and make those decisions more quickly in real time.
So moving a consulting team off legacy habits, things you spoke about, spreadsheets, personal trackers, tribal knowledge, right? That's the hardest part of any PSA rollout. How did you approach driving adoption and change management at TruSummit, and what actually worked?
Yeah, so one of the great things that made this a little bit easier, and change is always difficult. Any new system's going to take time for people to adopt fully. But one of the things that being built on Salesforce, it made that learning curve for our team a lot smaller, and we were able to get the team up to speed on it pretty quickly. And we did that through a couple of things. First off, the training and the support from the Client team was great, right? So we were able to pick it up and be able to sort of teach our teams how to use it, and they were able to coach us on how to use it in a way that our employees would get the most value from it. But it became a sort of carrots and stick thing, where Client offered to them carrots in the sense of putting time in, for example, daily time entry became a lot easier than it did, because it was built on Salesforce, and it was robust and sophisticated, and it made the whole process as simple as possible. Big improvement over what we were using previously. And then the sticks, because we had visibility into what people were doing if they weren't putting their time in. We were able to, have those conversations because we had the data right there in front of us. So that was really, I think, for us, a big win.
So where is TruSummit headed in the next 12 to 18 months, and how does having Client as your operational backbone really factor into that growth plan?
Yeah, so our growth over the next day looking very, very strong. We've been on a pretty accelerated growth rate over the last year or so, and we're expecting to be building and growing our team and really scaling up over the next year and a half to 2 years. And really, from our perspective, Client is the perfect product for a couple of reasons. First off, it scales, and it's obviously going to help us on that journey towards growth as we bring on a lot more clients and a lot more projects and resources, and it can handle that, right? As we double in size, there's still the tools in there to really manage many more projects and resources in a way that's efficient and effective. But our expectation is that given our journey so far with Client, it's going to continue to be a good journey and strong. And Client, the company has been there supporting us all along. And I would say, of all of our partners, of all of the companies that we work with, Client is a company that listens and truly partners and takes feedback. And one of those things that people have been asking, ourselves included, has been how can we leverage AI and agents to sort of speed up and facilitate some of the more time-consuming tasks. And we're really excited to see the launch of the agents inside of Client, and we're doing this for our clients, our customers, and we fully expect to start using these for ourselves in our operations.
Awesome, excellent. Last question for you, Dean. If a COO at another Salesforce consultancy is watching this right now and wondering whether Client is worth it, I know we talked about a lot there, but very briefly, what do you want them to walk away knowing?
What I would, in terms of, what I would want a decision maker to think about when they're looking at a PSA tool is, what is the cost of one poorly delivered project? What is the cost long-term of potentially losing a customer because you haven't been able to manage and control the risks on a project? What are the costs of making the wrong hires because you're staffing up and you're not able to see deep into your pipeline and your forecasts and accurately, have a sense of where your business is going? Those are real costs. Those are business limiting decisions that you can make without a clear picture of how your teams are operating and running and delivering your projects. So that's really what I would focus on is, it's hard to put a price on happy customers and long-term value of hanging on to customers. So that's really what we focus on, and Client certainly helps us with that.
All right, sir. Appreciate the time, man. Have a great week. Enjoy the time off.
My pleasure. Thanks. Bye.
Take care, Bubba. Bye-bye.